Thanks for joining us. This is Education Insight, and I'm Lacey Kendall. Across the country, even around the world, 9-year-olds are struggling at home and at school. It's due to the fact that they did not attend kindergarten or the first grade in person and lost out on extremely important social and emotional learning that schools focus on at that age. These now fourth graders are having difficulties interpreting body language and facial expressions. Many have serious separation anxiety when dropped off at school, and once they arrive, they don't know how to interact with other children, resolve disputes, or understand their own very strong emotions. Fourth grade teachers are dealing with this on a daily basis, all while trying their best to help 9-year-olds catch up on academics where they're notably behind as well. Cara Molina is the Executive Director for Health and Wellness Services in the Ontario Montclair School District. Her office works with students, therapists, and teachers to find solutions, and she joins us later in the show. But first we meet Perla Badena. She has extensive experience teaching fourth grade and is currently teaching at Seaview Elementary in Salton City of the Coachella Valley. Perla, thanks for joining us.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Let's start by asking, what is the hardest thing that kids in your class are dealing with, socially or emotionally right now?
Socially, what I've seen with this age group, they are dealing with having to collaborate, not just in the classroom setting, but out there in the playground. Collaboration, conflict resolution is something that they are struggling with a little. And I want to say that most of it is towards our chronic absences. When they're not here, it's very hard for them to get that routine of, knowing how to talk to someone. Mm-hmm. They might be here for maybe 2 days and then they're absent for a couple days and they come back, and it's kind of like they're not getting that everyday practice in where they are able to, gain those skills. And especially with the students in my age group that I work with, they are the students that started kindergarten during COVID. Yeah. So they, missed out on a very crucial part of education where kinder is all about being social. Like, yes, there's testing still, but there's still a lot of social aspects to kindergarten that they have missed out on. We see them having that trouble with conflict resolution and collaboration. Even if it's just turn to your neighbor and tell them what you did this weekend, some of them are still struggling with that. It's starting the conversation, and especially if they have never spoken to that person, because they're still students in their grade level, which is something you normally don't see, especially in a classroom setting where they have been in a classroom with someone for months at a time and they have never spoken a word to that person. This is what you want to do. You want to go out and you want to play with everybody. You want to get to know someone in some way or form. And you're like, that's my classmate. And you at least know one fact about them. But now we're seeing that they have classmates and they're like, well, I've never spoken to them before. And it shocks me because they're in fourth grade and they've been in the same school with these students since they were in kindergarten.
Are other fourth grade teachers that are they saying and seeing the very same things?
They're seeing a lot of similar things. A lot of classrooms are different. Not only is it just socially and emotionally, but there's some academic struggles that we are all seeing across the board. Things like using scissors was actually a struggle that they had because those are skills that you gain in kinder. And I also saw the same thing with the collaboration. As teachers, we're trying to find other solutions to get them to talk. Maybe they're not where they're supposed to be, but at least a little bit of improvement by the end of the year so that they can improve as they go. My students are working really hard at it, but there's just some days where they do shut down because it's hard, for them.
Right. And to be clear, for those listeners that just joined us, this problem stems from the fact that at the age when your brain is most susceptible to learning how to handle your emotions, how to make friends and interact with others, these kids were at home looking at a screen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then when they went into first grade, they were separated by glass. Their desks were all separated with that. And they couldn't see the mouth of the teacher. That's something that I never realized, like how that affects them. The teacher had a face mask the whole time. So if you started kindergarten during that time, you are not looking at the proper ways that you're supposed to enunciate words. And then so when you're, learning language and learning how to speak is a very important part of your social and emotional learning as well. And these students, they're not confident in their speaking because of that. We have a lot of students in speech across the board, not just in one school, but many schools. Speech has an overload of cases because they have students who missed out on that crucial part of learning.
Yeah. Do you think kids today in 2025 are more stressed and anxious than they were before all of this happened? And how do you notice it if it is?
I do think that students are more stressed, and I think it's something that has compiled on and on over the years because they're expected to leave the grade knowing a set of standards and going into the next grade. And I feel there's a skill that they know that they don't know it. Like right now, the students should know quick multiplication facts. And you can tell the frustration when a lot of them can't get the simple facts quickly. They're struggling. You can see it in their face. But how I address that with them is I make sure that I let them know that there's still an opportunity to learn, because right now we're working on this skill. But when they go home or when they have a free time, they know that there's an opportunity to grow. So they are into like, okay, I'm going to get through this problem, even if it takes me a little longer. But next time I want to work on my multiplication facts. So they know their success criteria following the steps. So they're able to go ahead and, work on those skills when needed. And that's something that our district is implementing right now is all students must know their learning intention and their success criteria. And that is helping them to understand, what do I need to work on in order to master this skill? And sometimes it is skills from 2 grades prior or the grade prior. So that's something that is helping them, which is a really good thing because it's going to take a while to see if it works out.
So let me go back to something you mentioned earlier, that they're not friends with students that they've come through the first and second and third grade with, and they're having difficulties interacting with other kids. Are your students comfortable talking to you and to other teachers about how they're feeling and about what's going on with them? Or is it still tough for them to communicate even with their teacher?
So with this particular group, Lacey, they are not 100% comfortable with me yet, but they are comfortable speaking to the supervisors. And an important thing to know about my school and my district in general is this school is actually the furthest one out from all the other schools. So this school sees a lot of turnaround in teachers. And we've also just had a recent huge layoff of teacher layoffs. So these students are actually seeing a lot of new faces, more than the other students have. But these students in particular have been impacted by change over more than just this past year. It's been years and years and years. So they're not 100% comfortable with maybe the teachers, but with the staff, they're definitely comfortable with the staff. The front office has been more sustainable employees that they have all year round. And then the supervisors also have been here for years. So students would know them from kinder. That's their constant. So from what I've seen is that, I have supervisors come and let me know about conflict. That is who they're comfortable speaking to. Mm-hmm. And we can give them SEL lessons. We can give them PBIS skills to work on.
What are those?
So SEL is a social and emotional learning lessons that our district has it's something that they want all teachers to implement every morning. And so with my classroom, the first 20 minutes, they're looking at slides. So we have slides that the district has shared with all of us. And we're going through it as a group, and we have to talk about our feelings and how we feel and what emotions mean what, and how are you feeling today? Are you in the blue or the red? And all the different colors have different emotions. And then they go on to, reading a story about the lesson of the day. Like this lesson this week is new beginnings. So the other system I mentioned is PBIS. I'm not sure exactly what the acronym's for.
That's okay. My producer handed me a note here that says PBIS stands for Positive Behavioral Interventions and Supports. So, Perla, could you give me an example of what PBIS is like in practice?
So that emphasizes the different behaviors that they can practice. For example, accepting no for an answer, and it'll give them step-by-step how to accept no for an answer. So what it will look like on the playground is kind of like saying no, accepting no. Like if a supervisor tells them no, they will say, "What are your PBS skills? Make sure you practice that." And then the student will do exactly what those steps are, which is nodding your head, showing them that you're listening and saying okay, and then going and finding something else to do.
Yeah. Coming up, more of our conversation with fourth grade instructor Perla Badena and our discussion on the extraordinary struggles of 9-year-olds who missed in-person kindergarten and first grade. This is Education Insight. Welcome back to Education Insight. For each of us listening, our own ability to learn how to get along with others, to resolve problems and make friends, to interpret other people's feelings and feel comfortable when we were away from our parents was learned in kindergarten and first grade classrooms. But today's fourth graders spent those years online, and teachers across the country are trying to help them catch up. Perla Badena is one of those teachers, and we continue our discussion with her. Perla, I'm going to be very transparent here. I had dinner and a small disagreement with a 9-year-old last night. And I'm wondering now, are you seeing your kids having difficulties dealing with disagreements and conflicts? Do they know how to work things out, or are you seeing them needing more help right now?
So in my class, at least a good 80% of them can agree to disagree. But the ones that don't, I believe that they're struggling with what happens next. What's the PBS skill for disagreeing with others? And this is actually the skill this week that we're working on. And then they won't remember off the top of their head. And I'll maybe tell them the first step or the first two. And then they'll say, well, they just want to state their claim and they want to be the one that's right. And I said, look, I understand how you feel, which is part of the skill. You tell them, I understand how you feel. I still disagree with you. And you have to leave it at that. You disagree. And if it's really something that you cannot be friends over, you need to give each other some space. And what happens after that is they don't want to be my friend because I didn't agree with them. And I'm like, okay, if they choose not to be your friend, that's their choice. And I can't make them be your friend. So what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to go find other friends. And if they decide they want to be your friend again, you need to decide if you want to enter that friendship again. So then they'll say, okay, so I have a choice too. Yes, you have a choice too. So it's all about knowing what choices you do have and don't have. Because a lot of the time they're still learning that. They're still learning like, wait, I know that they called our friendship off. Do I have a choice? Yes, you can also disagree with them. You can also not agree to be their friend.
Yeah.
That is your choice too. Though that's something they're still working on. And even if you tell them that once, sometimes they'll forget because, their emotions are so big and so strong that they're not fully able to name it or even understand what they're feeling or why they're feeling that way. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of something that they do need to work on as well. And that's something that we work on here at school, but it's also something that they have to definitely work at home. You need to follow the steps and the rules that go with having a disagreement. Sure. So that's something that they are also working on too.
Yeah. Speaking of that, what do you tell the parents of these 9-year-olds? What can parents do to help their kids feel more confident socially and manage their emotions better?
I want to say the most important thing for them is making sure that the students know that they can choose to feel that way, allowing them to feel that. But always tell my parents, just remember that you have a set of your own rules at home. And it's not rules on how they should feel, but it's rules on how they should go about their feelings, because we have to deal with the emotions that they feel, or else it's something that's they're going to keep coming to you about it and coming to you about it and coming to you about it and coming to you about it. So it's something that you need to address. So I always tell them that. And the next important thing is making sure that they're coming to school every single day. So and usually if I'm having those issues with students at school, if they were having struggles at school that were constant while they were there, it's usually because they were not there most of the week. Because like I said, we were seeing a lot of chronic absences. So When I'm speaking to a parent about things like this, it's usually because their student is not here to practice those skills here. So I said, if you want them to get more of those social skills here, you want to make sure that they're here at school. A lot of parents that have students that are not ready for maybe TK, or, they're ready for preschool, and they're ready for Head Start, but not really TK yet. Those parents they'll be like, what do I do? My child is not socializing with other kids. And the one thing that they do is they put them in a program. And then whether it's preschool, whether it's Head Start, or it could even be a club where it's like soccer, something that's maybe less hours. And those allow them to get those skills. And as long as they show up and they do what they need to do, they're able to get the skills that they need. So I tell the parents, they're here, they're in school, they're enrolled. Now we just got to make sure that they keep coming to school so they can continue to work on that here, so that when they go home, they can also work on that with you. And I always tell them, ask them about the SEL lesson of the day. Ask them about their PBIS skill of the day.
Yeah. Two-part question here. Is your school and district offering support for this work to help these kids catch up? And finally, what do you think that our school districts and our schools and parents should be focusing on to help things get back to the way they were socially and emotionally for these children in the next few years?
To answer your first question, Lacey, I want to say that my school and my district are doing a pretty great job, with the resources that they have for helping students in these situations. So when it comes to the social aspect of their struggles, we do have school counselors. There's several sites that have two, depending on the size of the school. They'll have two counselors on site. And the counselors are working around the clock. They're very busy. They have a lot of caseloads. They're working really hard with all of these students that are struggling with their emotions and with their behavior as well. And when a parent has concerns or I have concerns, I can go to the parent, or the parent can come to me, and we can put in a request for referral for therapy. And that is the quickest way to get it, is if a parent requests it. So that's something that we, try to tell them, like, that is an option that they have. And then the district is doing its best with making sure that all students are being seen in a timely manner. And to answer your second question, what we should be focusing on is ensuring that the students are getting what they need in the classroom. Are all the teachers doing the SEL lessons? Are they talking about the PBIS skills? I mean, I want to say that all my fellow teachers are, but, we do see some students who are still having issues with these. So maybe those students either can be pulled out of class maybe 30 minutes a day and do group therapy, but not therapy in particular, but mostly like working on PBIS skills, giving them examples and then letting them practice them. Because it's one thing to talk about it with them in the morning and go over it and review it. I think some of them do need that play by play and seeing it happen in real time. Most of them are visual learners, so they can get that practice in. I think that's something that we definitely need to do. And then that's something we should do at home too. And I think parents, they probably feel like, what the precious time that I have with my kids, I want to be spending it with, leisure activities and, maybe not something so heavy, but those can be implemented throughout the day. You can always say, what happens if I didn't want to do this and this, like hypotheticals, and talk about it with them, or even just ask them about their day. You'll be able to not only learn about them, but you'll also be able to help them solve problems. Maybe they weren't even problems that they had, or it was maybe a conflict that they saw from across the schoolyard. And then you can ask them questions like, how would you have handled that? These type of conversations can be 5 to 10 minute conversations every day. But it can also tell you how your child is doing, and could also give you an opportunity to give them insight on ideas that a teacher or, school admin hasn't thought of. And it's something that they can take back with them to the classroom. So I think having those conversations at home is very important. It's something that we should start doing, or if you're already doing it, continue to do it.
Good advice. And that is Perla Badena, a fourth grade educator for Seaview Elementary School in the Coachella Valley Unified School District. Perla, thanks for joining us today on Education Insight.
Thank you so much for having me.
Cara Molina has spent the past several months working on the issue of struggling 9-year-olds from a district level. She's the Executive Director for Health and Wellness Services in the Ontario Montclair School District, where she oversees the comprehensive system of care for social, emotional, and mental health in the largest pre-K through 8 district in California. Cara, thanks for joining the conversation.
Thank you for having me.
We just got to speaking with a 4th grade teacher out in the Coachella Valley, talking about what she's experiencing in her classroom. But your district is also seeing 9-year-olds having unusual issues, aren't you?
We are. We're seeing just increased evidence of difficulty with things like emotional regulation, a really low executive functioning skills, lots of difficulty with establishing positive relationships, and just really having those skills needed to even access their education and things like organization. And so really seeing a little bit of a delay in the development of those skills.
How are your teachers typically helping those kids when they're having difficulties?
So we always like to talk about behavior, and it's two sides of the same coin. We have those externalizing behaviors where we're seeing kiddos act out, having strong emotions and inability to regulate themselves. And then on the other side of that coin, we're really seeing those internalizing behaviors, those social emotional skills, even seeing incredibly low data points of things like self-efficacy, even the ability to believe in themselves. And so what we're supporting our teachers with is we train in things like trauma-informed care, restorative practices, how to implement social-emotional learning, both in dedicated instructional minutes and integrated through the learning day.
So how does the Ontario Montclair School District provide a larger network of support?
I'm really proud of what we've been able to accomplish, in all honesty. We really take on that whole child, whole family, whole community perspective. And so it really starts in providing tiered support with that foundational instructional piece. The old saying says, if you want a child to read, you teach. If you want a child to do math computations, you teach. So it's the same thing with, externalizing behaviors and those social emotional skills. So we want to encourage that teaching. So it starts with that foundational tiered first, where we're supporting, guiding, delivering professional development, both to teachers and our behavioral support staff, teaching them just really, what those expectations look like. What do some of these social skills look like, modeling, et cetera, et cetera. But we know that that's not enough right now. And so we actually have 2 staff members at each of our 33 schools that are dedicated to providing additional support in those behavioral health skills. So if what's happening in the classroom isn't enough, they have the ability to pull them out and either do small group or one-on-one social skills lessons, teaching and behavioral expectations, lots of, mentoring maybe. So lots of tiered support in that way, but we don't stop there. We continue with our tiered services. After that, if a more intensive service is needed, in my department, like I mentioned a moment ago, we do have graduate level mental health interns and we have licensed clinical therapists. So we're able to provide both small group and increased intensity individual clinical therapy counseling sessions.
Cara, let me ask you this. What are you hearing from others in your line of work, from other school districts? Are these sort of practices that you're describing from the Ontario Montclair School District, are those happening in other parts of the Inland Empire or the Coachella Valley?
I do see many of our school districts leaning in this way. Our governor did have his initiative to increase behavioral health services to all of our students. And so we are seeing a lot more funding being provided to districts so that they can increase those services.
No doubt, Cara, there are a number of parents that are listening right now and might be identifying with this topic and wondering, what can I do to help my kids begin to open up and catch up on their social skills and get back to where they're supposed to be?
My advice is to ask lots and lots of questions. Sometimes as parents, and I'm a parent and a grandparent myself, so totally understand that. But sometimes as parents, we're not aware of all the programs and services available to our students in their own school districts or in the community. So I would always recommend to start by asking. We are fortunate that we have those behavioral health individuals at all of our schools. We call them outreach consultants. And so I can direct our families to that individual. If their schools don't have that, definitely ask the front office, ask the principal, because there might be things like we're doing. For example, we're really helping families by providing workshops about student engagement and how to build connections and how to integrate those wonderful behavioral practices that we do in our schools. How do they do that at home? How do they do social emotional learning at home? And so definitely want to encourage those families that are listening to ask the questions. And if the answer isn't yes, we have something that you're looking for, advocate for it. Ask, how can I be part of the solution so that we can bring this to our school?
Cara Molina, the Executive Director for the Health and Wellness Services Department in the Ontario Montclair School District. Cara, thanks so much for joining us on Education Insight today. I understand you're at a conference right now, so thank you for sneaking away to take our call.
It has been my honor and my pleasure. Thank you.
On next week's show, we're joined by Harvard and Caltech researcher and author Jenny Stevens. She's one of the nation's top experts on climate literacy, and she says our colleges are not preparing students to lead the country through the climate issues of the coming decades. But she says it's doable. For Education Insight, I'm Lacey Kendall. Have a great week.
Education Insight is produced in partnership with KVCR San Bernardino.
Our executive producer is Jacob Poor.
And our production engineer is Tyler Veazey.
Alyssa Silva is our production assistant.
And Lacey Kendall is your host. Support is provided by College Futures Foundation.
Growing Inland Achievement. Working together for inland education and economic success.
Join us again next week for Education Insight.